candid conversations, unfiltered opinions, and humor with lAVP podcast.
Hello, everybody. Welcome to another episode. So excited to be here with Mr. Daniel Sterling. Mr. Daniel Sterling is a communicator, he's an author, and also an instigator of change, positive change. So his books, one of the newest one, Raising Boys into Positive Men.
Good men, yes.
Good men. Raising Boys into Good Men. He's working on that book right now. However, he's also the author of a memoir. Hungry is a self-discovery memoir. And Daniel, is that published anywhere that we can grab a copy? Should we want to?
I wish it were. I'm working on that.
All right. So we have 2 books in the pipeline to look forward to. So we're going to talk about Mr. Daniel Sterling's life, his work, and his continued work, which is something all of us should really do because we're usually not done growing. So welcome, Danielle. It's such a pleasure to have you on today.
Thank you so much for having me.
So we just had a laugh not too long ago about this whole instigator stuff. So let's start on that. When somebody hears instigator, it usually has a negative connotation to it. It's kind of like how John Lewis, rest his soul, said he's good trouble. So can we talk about, positive instigation?
I like it. Yeah, we did have a laugh about this because I threw that in at the end because you were asking me, well, what title would you like? I said, well, I consider myself a writer and a communicator. And then I thought, well, yeah, instigator too. So I say that in the nicest way possible. And it's not my job to needle people, but what I always do is to talk about my life, my case, my instances, because I would never presume to speak for another or to offer advice, God forbid. I don't believe in that. All I do is talk about my experiences and what I learned. And if there's a takeaway from that, great. That's my whole intent. I'm actually paying forward what was freely given to me, which is working with this mentor of mine for 20 plus years. Skills, clarity, communication, personal accountability, putting my ego aside, stop being so defended, get to know my insecurities, get to know my behavior so well that after a time, it ceases to have such horsepower, and I can see my issues coming from further away and be proactive in my own life and make better, healthier choices. So when I say instigator, I'm putting it out in the world, and I'm hoping that people can take something tangible away that they can apply to their own life, be it a skill or an insight or a thought, a practice, whatever. I don't take it seriously. I don't presume to know what is best for another, but what I do is I am paying forward what was freely given to me by a very powerful mentor who was extremely conscious, wise, and experienced. She is what I call a wise tribal elder, and I was very fortunate that I crossed paths with her and spent 20 years with her. So in paying forward what she freely gave to me, is primarily the writing. And so I am hoping that people take from what I write, what I perhaps say, something tangible that they can apply to their life to improve it. A skill, a bit of communication, a way to talk to someone. That's my great hope. Then I will have achieved what I set out to do. So I guess in a small way, I am an instigator, but yeah, that's a tricky one. There's enough advice in the world, and I'm not that.
Yeah. I love how you preface this conversation speaking from a personal point of view as opposed to trying to influence or change other people around you. Fortunately and unfortunately, it takes a great deal of personal knowing to not want to change somebody else as opposed to taking a look at yourself. And in a family dynamic, there's usually a lot of that, you did. And let's talk about communication in that regard and how that also bleeds into other interpersonal relationships, work, project, entrepreneurship. So where do you feel the most breakdown happens, especially in the family dynamic. There are a lot of people that I see on social media post old pictures of grandparents with a slew of children and a slew of grandchildren. So sad that most of these people are not talking to each other now once the grandparents were out of the picture. What do you think happened leading to that breakdown, and why were the grandparents the glue that held the family together until they weren't there? And how can we avoid, those behaviors that unfortunately bleed into other aspects of our lives?
Great question. And first off, I have to know that I can't fix anyone. I can't fix their problems. I can't fix their drug abuse. I can't fix their bad marriage, nor should I want to. What I can do is take accountability for me and say, I love you. I care about you. You're my sister. You're my brother, whatever it may be. And I want us to have a healthy relationship, but not necessarily on their terms. So to me, it begins with accountability. It's like, I know that I was trouble as a kid. And I know that I was hard on you. I know that I mistreated you. I know I did all these things. And for that, I'm very sorry. And I hope that you'll forgive me. So if we can start with some of these softer skills and to invite people in to then hopefully maybe take a little bit of ownership for themselves and say, I was difficult as well. Then there's hope. But without accountability, it's just most people just say, yeah, he's an a-hole and too much trouble and he's difficult, he's argumentative, and I don't want to deal with it. So it takes two willing parties. That's a given. And without it, there's no hope. And the other part of that equation is that just because we're blood doesn't always mean we're supposed to have a lifelong close relationship. It just does not work that way. I've got 4 siblings, 3 now, we lost one, but I have a lot of history with them. So I would just say that it starts with me.
Right. So I love the aspect of just because we're blood does not mean we maintain a lifelong relationship or communication. So what is your take on people going no contact with family members who refuse to be accountable, even with their best effort to communicate hurt, to communicate hard feelings, and to communicate the desire to at least acknowledge a hurt? So, the people that praise it as a person looking out for their own well-being and mental health to, go no contact, and others have an opinion of it shouldn't get to the point of having to go without speaking with your family member, regardless of, how bad they hurt you. So what is your take on either position?
Great question. So no contact, to me, a very powerful thing, not to be done lightly. But in that process, it's a way of putting people on notice to say, enough. I've had enough. I don't want to deal with your hostility, your destructiveness, whatever it may be. It calls people to attention as well, because talk is cheap. And to say, please don't talk to me that way. Don't speak to me in those terms. And I'll see you Sunday at family dinner. To say, that's it. I'm done. I want a relationship with you, but not on these terms. So I'm going to go no contact right now until I hear otherwise from you. If you're interested in a relationship with me where we meet in the middle, I'm in. If it's all on your terms, I'm not in. And so I think being on the receiving end of a no contact, hard and fast rule, I'm sure causes people to think, hopefully, because that's the whole point. It's like, okay, they're telling me they don't want anything to do with it. They don't want to talk to me. In fact, I can't even call them because they blocked me. So what is it that I have done to drive my sister away, my brother away? And that's a powerful thing. And so I'm for it.
Yeah. So thank you for covering that. Most people expect that reaction, like inventory of self of what led to that. But that usually is not the outcome everybody gets. Outcomes including blame. So how can a person handle implementing a no contact where their blame levied as, in terms of guilt tripping? Because again, like you said, no contact is a serious thing. Nobody just wakes up and decides, I don't want to talk to my family member, people I have history with. willy-nilly. It's not an easy decision to come to. It usually takes years and decades to understand and recognize the hurt and the injury. So when a person is being guilt tripped, how can they handle that as opposed to a person on the receiving end doing an introspective inventory of, what brought this person to this decision as opposed to lashing out and blaming?
Well, if I'm understanding your question, if they're attempting to lay a guilt trip at my feet and I've blocked them, then I don't have contact, so I'm not hearing it. I may be hearing it through other family members, and that's
Right.
to be expected. I get it. I hear it through the grapevine, and I go, well, I'm sad that that's how they feel. But my rule stays because ultimately what I'm doing is advocating for me. And that's what's important here.
Mhm.
And I think there's a lot of people in the world who don't understand self-advocacy. And if they did, I think that they would love themselves a lot more if they started to embrace it and saying, I appreciate what you're saying, but that's not for me. Yeah, I don't think I'm going to go there. And that doesn't work for me in a nice way. But if we trust that small, still voice, I think that that is just critical to leading a empowered, conscious life, because I have to be here for me first, because then otherwise I'm no good to anybody. I can't be a good friend and brother and spouse, whatever, if I am uncertain about who I am, if I am wobbly in my everyday life. So self-advocacy is a huge part of that. And it's what we're all called to do. I mean, this is what evolution looks like, is empowered, kind, strong, good people in the world. We need more of
Yeah.
those.
Right. Thank you for that. So I want you to speak to the parent population. So your book coming out, Raising Boys into Good Men.
Good man.
Yes, I got it. Just touching on tradition, right? Traditionally, people are raised to toe the line. And some parents are not used to the children self-advocating for themselves, right? And that is usually chalked up to, new age children of nowadays don't respect or whatever it is. So, what would you say to parents of a certain age who may be listening to this conversation that you and I are having, who find themselves in a position where the adult children, young adults, middle age, older adults, children are kind of like, Mom, Dad, no. This is not okay. And your continued behavior this way, might result in me not having contact with you. I'm saying that because I also work as a hospice nurse, and I have seen cases where people are actively on their dying bed and children that they've been disenfranchised from for years, even decades, even when they're told their parent is, on their way out, either with a terminal diagnosis or actively dying, still do not stand firm in their decision to, raise or disenfranchise themselves from a parent. So what would you say to parents who are, maybe they toed the line with their parents, but they're finding themselves where their children are self-advocating to avoid having to be in a situation where they're not self-reflecting and unfortunately maybe ending up with their kids not wanting to be a part of their lives, despite what the situation may be?
So if I'm understanding your question, you're asking me what parents can do about their children who have stepped away or blocking them or not part of their lives. Is that accurate?
Yeah. Yes. What can you tell those parents listening? Because traditions are different. Modern day parenting and what traditional parents used to look like. You toed the line, you did whatever your parents said, you didn't have a voice, and, things of that nature. To then where people know that they can speak for themselves. You spoke about self-advocacy, and parents, sometimes older parents don't know how to handle that because that is seen as a form of disrespect or insubordination or whatever you want to call it, to avoid, if you really want your children to, remain in your life, to avoid not even having your children around on your deathbed. What can we do to salvage that relationship before it gets that far?
That's a big question. So I feel like I would need some sort of anecdotal story of what we're talking about. But if a child is not speaking to, let's say they're 20 years old, as an example, they're not speaking to their parents. Well, what's the backstory? What is it that the parents have done to drive this kid away? Or is it just the kid is out of control and full of themselves and they've been given everything, and now all of a sudden their parents are saying no and they're rebelling? But I'm not sure I have a good answer to your question. So, but when it comes to parenting, I would say
Right.
they've got to look deeply at themselves about how they're parenting their kids. And I'm not lecturing anyone, but if I'm a parent, I have to know myself in order to parent my child. I have to be aware of how I'm handling them, how I'm talking to them, my tone of voice, my body language, the message I'm giving to them. I have great responsibility to parent a child because they're looking to me for structure and guidance and love and affirmation and reinforcement. So it's a huge responsibility. And it starts from the minute that child takes their first breath. And so I got to be present. I got to be engaged. I got to talk to them. I got to find out what it is that they are thinking, what it is that they want. I think a lot of parents, they have an expectation of their kids, and it's not healthy. And usually they push their kid into athletics or piano or whatever. My mother is a perfect example. She signed me up for piano lessons when I was in grade school, and I hated it. I was hungry. I couldn't concentrate, and she made me do it. And then I had a piano recital and it went really badly. And she was so disappointed in me. I'm like, Mom, I'm thinking to myself, I didn't say it because I couldn't say it. She wouldn't hear it. I was like, do you not even see what's going on? I am starving in school, literally. I have no packed lunch. And now you're sending me to piano lessons and I have no snack. I am starving. Like, I started to distrust my parents at a very young age. It's like I couldn't count on them. So I started to try and figure it out on my own, how to feed myself and, have a lunch at school. So they just were not paying attention. They had a lot on their plate. I get it. But they created this kid who turned into a needy, insecure adult. So I can speak from firsthand experience that pay attention to what that kid is saying and what their needs are. Because in many ways, mine.
So you just set up a perfect scenario where a young person, man or woman, growing up and having an experience of that nature with a mother or father, and they've managed to get themselves to a place of being successful. But in communicating how they felt as that 6, 7, 8, 9-year-old, what you said, yes, I had a lot on my plate. Well, you survived, you didn't die. Or it comes with, you were such a difficult child, or you were never good at anything. And that person chooses to say, you know what, I struggled with this as a kid. It resulted in these behaviors, but I'm able to get myself to become a successful adult. However, I am communicating this to you and you're either finding excuses still as opposed to acknowledging how I felt. And you're still kind of projecting a lot of fault to me. So how can parents avoid that happening? Because from my own personal experience, it takes a lot of strength to summon up the courage to say, this is how I felt, or this is how these situations or these occurrences made me feel. And there's a lot of internal dialogue that happens before you have that strength to say something. So at a point where you're dismissed or not acknowledged, or you don't get the, physical, emotional hug, it does something to a person. So how can we avoid, as new parents, experienced parents, whether in the 70s, 90s, 60s, 50s, it doesn't matter where you are. How can we avoid putting our children in such a vulnerable place that they feel security is basically walling off?
Okay. So if I'm understanding your question, I would say that if parents can go to kids and ask questions, questions to me are a form of love. It's like, I want to know what's going on with you. I want to know what you were feeling. Tell me about what happened at school today. And continue to dig, and with a kind tone of voice, kids are going to come out and they're going to respond, and they're going to tell the truth and say, this teacher was just mean today. And I was afraid of her, whatever it is. If I can get that out of my child, then I'm doing my job. And then I become the advocate for my child because they can't, not yet. So in that process, I'm teaching them how to self-advocate, and I'm teaching them that it's okay to speak up. So if a kid feels safe in approaching their father or their mother and tell them what's really going on, then that parent has done a good job of building that relationship of trust. And I think that trust is non-existent in a lot of homes, sadly. And also parents have to acknowledge the ways in which they perhaps could have done better. Won't say failed their children, but maybe that's it. If it's big enough, yeah. So, if they can come and say, I'm sorry that I said that to you. I was angry and I was upset and I was disappointed in you, and I didn't really have a right to be, because now I see what was really going on. So I'm sorry. I hope that you can forgive me. When parents talk to their kids like that, man, that is everything. I would have died to have heard that from my mother or father, and to say, I'm sorry that we allowed your brother to run roughshod over you, that we did not protect you. I would have said, thank you for that. I really appreciate it. And that would have been an incredible moment, a bonding moment between parent and child that would have healed years and years of turmoil and discord in the family.
Yeah. I believe that wholeheartedly. And the thing with parenting, there's no manual, but you have to parent according to the child, and you have to parent in the moment. And things do happen, and we get busy, but we have a responsibility to the little people or adults or young adults that we're raising. And it takes a very conscious effort to be present. Nobody's perfect. However, acknowledging where you falter is very important. So even within siblings, nobody's perfect, but if a sibling has the courage to come to you, even if you don't have anything to say in the moment, you can process it, but acknowledging it is very important. I find acknowledging somebody's feelings or experience, I should say, as half the battle won. Acknowledge that this is where this person is. And I feel like traditionally and also generationally, it's something that more and more people are implementing into their parenting and family relationship. Some families didn't have that as the norm. Some traditions don't have that as a norm, but just it bodes for better human experience. That is my observation. I don't know if you agree, Danielle.
I agree.
Thank you. Let's talk about raising boys into good men. So what is a good man?
Very good question. Well, for me, it's a man in balance who is, again, knows himself well, who is kind, fierce as needed, focused, logical, compassionate, nurturing, someone of service who is aware of his surroundings, and it's not all about him. I come first. I have to be there for me first. I've said that. I've got to be, in order to be any good to anybody else, I have to be as whole as I possibly can be. And that's what I'm talking about right now, is this balance of the masculine and the feminine energies. And this is what my mentor started talking to me about very early. And she said, you're out of balance. And I said, I would agree, because I was very male when I met her. And along with a lot of other personal issues I was struggling with. But a good man, I think we all know it when we see one and talk to one and go, he made me feel good about this dialogue we had about myself. He was insightful. He was thoughtful. It wasn't all about him. He had no need to bogart the conversation. Just a good guy. And usually they're the ones who are not the loudest. I think we know who they are.
Yeah. We know who they are, and
we're crying for attention. They're screaming for attention, be it positive or negative. Just give it to me.
So with all of that said, you do know that goes against the societal picture of what a man is. The macho, machismo, loud.
Are we still there? Really? Please don't
the people are still there. The alpha male, classification, that description goes against that. And men that are in their masculine in the way that you have described, empathetic, present for themselves and their loved ones, attentive, loving, caring, soft when needed to, strong when needed to, providers, protectors. Those men are sometimes classified as not mature enough or not masculine enough. So as a society, the machismo macho man, I know more and more women are, establishing themselves and understanding that, the macho-ness is not all that it's cracked up to be. And more women are healing and looking and accepting more emotionally intelligent and balanced men. So for somebody who may be disagreeing with you, Danielle, about what a good man is, what would you have to say about that?
So there's a lot to unpack there. I would say that I think I know men pretty well, and because I've been traveling in these circles for a long time now. It's funny because from a very young age, I just had an aversion to that posturing, that very male nonsense. It was always such a turnoff to me. And I'm thinking, what insecurity is he trying to hide? I know for me that I was very much in my ego because of my insecurities. It's like, well, I'm going to trot this out that I'm this athlete and on TV, that was my identity, and it didn't serve me, didn't serve my greater good. So I think the danger today is the overly soft man. And I know that a lot of women complain about this. So again, I am always talking about a balance. So this macho attitude, but strength, big difference. One is grounded. The other to me is not. And so I think that we've swung the other way. And I think there's going to be a reckoning. There's a lot of men right now, young men, that are not working. And that's a problem because they're coasting, and there's going to be a reckoning with this. So I'll say it again. We have to be, well, I won't speak for we, but find that balance, because in order to make it in the world today, I have to be tough and resilient, because I'm going to get tested every single day, and especially in the work world. So if I can find that place where I can move in the work world, the dating world, the personal world, the relationship world, the friendship world, if I can move through all of those worlds and call up whatever energy I need in the moment, if someone is in my face, then I have no problem becoming a very male, aggressive, not here, not now, not with me.
Absolutely.
I have that in me. If it turns ugly, I don't like that side of me, but it's there and I know it's there. And I call on it as needed. I had a neighbor whose dog bit my little dog, and I just lost it with this guy. I was going to throttle him. And again, it was an extreme situation, and just his reaction of just like, oh, what's the big deal?
Huh?
Yeah. So he tapped into the worst parts of me. Not the worst, but one of a darker aspect of me. So I am very much that, but as a friend of mine used to say, I keep that part of me in the basement on bread and water. It's like I don't feed that part of me. It's like the analogy of the two wolves. Which one do I feed? So the idea is that I can move through all these worlds and be kind. I can be friendly. I can be funny. I can be rigorous. I can say, yeah, I don't think so. That's not with me, not today, not. So to find that balance is a beautiful thing. And it's very comforting.
Yeah.
So I hope I answered your question.
You did beautifully. Thank you. So as we wrap up the conversation, for the young men listening to us, Danielle, who may not necessarily have the role model, you mentioned your, a woman who came into your life was kind of like a guide, to get you to who you are today. For young men who are listening to us and either are exposed to the machismo, macho, masculine man, who wrestle with being that person or do know that there's got to be something different than this that feels more balanced in my body. What not necessarily advice, but what would you say to that young man listening to us today who wants better for himself and also better for the people around him?
Very good question. And it's a hard one too, because in my mind, what you're asking is, how do I find that wise tribal elder? That person who has got a lot of miles on their tires, who is going to take an interest in them and guide them. That's a hard one to find, because we're talking about hard-earned wisdom. So short of finding that, I would say look for that, number one, but find people that you align with, that, have values similar to yours: truth, integrity, honesty, courage, grit, resilience. These are the people that I look for in my life, and that are kind and loving and generous with their time and who they are, and celebrate others. And, their ego is really nowhere to be found. Those are the people that I want to surround myself, that I want in my life. So find them and read. Read the John Bradshaws, the Alice Millers, read about the family, because as you find your place and understand your place in the family, it can be very liberating and releasing, just that understanding. And never stop learning. And reading is such a big part of that. And be curious and ask questions and pay attention for those people that come into your lives, that they may say something. It's like, oh, that's interesting. I want to know more. Well, I wouldn't let it go. I would seek them out and say, tell me more about what you said. That's a good way to find people, and just don't stop, because it's your life. I'm convinced that people are living quiet lives of desperation. I really am.
Yeah.
And they haven't found their purpose, and they're locked into some career or job that pays well, but they feel very stuck, and that's sad. And so, it's not an easy thing to make big change, but do I want to really get to the end of my life and look back and say, I wish I would have taken more risks, and I wish I would have pursued this passion of mine? That to me is tragic. So do it now, do it today, because man, it goes fast. Time goes fast.
Yes, it does. Yes, it does. See, I usually ask for golden nugget, but you give us a bag full of nuggets. So I feel like, there's nothing left to give at this point. But this was a great conversation, Mr. Daniel Sterling, and I really appreciate your time. And you continue to do the great work that you do. But where can anybody find you to hear you out, listen to you? Do you have a website? And, the books, when are we looking to probably have that on the shelf somewhere?
Thank you for asking. I appreciate that. I've got a newsletter on Substack, Daniel Sterling Writer. So I just posted my second newsletter, and I'll add, I just started. And Instagram is the same, Daniel Sterling Writer.
Okay.
My author website, it's all out there. So I'm an open book, and I love to hear from people. So reach out, I respond.
Beautiful.
Community. That's what I'm after.
Yes.
Like-minded souls.
Yes, community is very important. So, just in case you didn't catch any of that, we'll make it available in the show notes. So the Instagram, the Substack, and the website. So fret not, we'll have it available to you. Thank you, everybody, for listening, and I hope something from this conversation was useful to somebody. So whether you are on the receiving end of a no contact or giving end of a no contact, or you just want to be generally a good human being and you're navigating life and just wanting something different, find books that align with who you're looking to guide you or what aspect of personality you're looking to cultivate for yourself. And also look for authors like Daniel Sterling to read their books and their life experiences, because nothing beats lived experience. Nothing, absolutely nothing beats lived experience. You have people who are bold enough to tell their personal stories that it could have just been tucked in and gone to the grave with them. Please capitalize on that, because it takes a lot of courage for somebody to open up and tell you the not so rosy part of their lives that just may save yours. So thank you for listening, everybody, and take very good care of yourself. Thank you again, Daniel, for being here.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you. Bye, everybody.
Thanks for tuning in to AVP's podcast. If you enjoyed today's episode, don't forget to subscribe, rate, and leave us a review. It really helps us out. We'd love to hear your thoughts and continue the discussion. So join us on social media or drop us a message. Until next time, keep exploring, stay curious, and keep pushing the boundaries of your world.